everybody, Chris Leno here from IPD, and standing next to me is Paul Bertucci and Bud Kogel. Thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of IPD's V70R M66 manual swap. The project car behind us is very famous amongst the Volvo enthusiasts that know IPD and know that it is one of our flagship cars. We've developed a ton of products off of it. It's basically a done car. It's in great condition. We love it. The thing is though, is that we decided as a group here that we were going to dive into an M66 before parts dried up and before it was going to become harder to get parts for these cars. I've taken this car up and down the West Coast to multiple shows, and the number one thing I always hear from customers is that's an amazing car, but it's unfortunate that it's an automatic. The cool thing about the R model is that it is an enthusiast-driven car. There's not a lot of manual transmission vehicles offered by Volvo, which is unfortunate, except for it is more commonly found in P1 models and earlier P2 models. But the Volvo R was definitely significant that it did come in the S60R and the V70R with a manual transmission with the M66. So, as a product group, we decided to join together and we decided to go ahead and do one last big project for the done V70R project car and do a manual swap. So, if you tuned into the first episode with the announcement, we were going to go ahead and just highlight, do an overview of what it looks like to do this thing. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the upcoming episodes. Like, what are you going to run into? We're not doing a step-by-step, but we are going to basically showcase what it's like to get it out of the vehicle, transfer an M66 into the car, what components we sourced, and how we sourced them. All right, Bud, so we've been talking about doing this M66 for quite some time, having the car here on our facility, but you really pushed us, you and Paul actually really pushed me to get this thing going. You're super into the R models. You've owned M66 models. You've pulled transmissions out. Both of you have done a lot of work on these cars. What was it about sourcing everything, Bud, that you can tell the people out there watching this episode on what you might need to find, and what are you finding out there in the market right now while sourcing these parts for this project?
Well, fortunately, we got lucky and sourced a lot of the main components from a customer that's local to Oregon. So we were able to pick up the pedal box, the transmission, the shifter, things of that sort, all as one package from him, and we went and picked it up. Some of these parts are still available. We can order them in from Sweden. You can find used parts on eBay. Obviously, we got a new cover that goes around the shifter. We got a new shifter. Since we've started sourcing these parts, these have become unavailable, but you can get generic shifters such as Momo to fix to this if you are looking to do the swap. Volvo still has the cable assemblies available, so we have a new one that's going in the car. We've worked with Spec for quite a while. We have a new clutch system, and then we've also put some new parts in the angle gear and transmission itself.
All right, so I'll keep this question going with Bud before I get to Paul here, but what is it that you found when you're looking for these products? Now, a lot of customers have been writing me already since the announcement was done that we were doing the M66 about how do you guys even know where to begin? What do you do? And the short answer to that is just experience. We've done a lot of manual swaps. We've worked on manual cars, a lot of R models here we have owned in the past that were M66 models. Paul has owned a bunch of them, Bud's owned them. We've all worked on them, so we know what things are different between the automatic compared to needing a manual. But the good news is that this car did come equipped with a manual transmission, so on other models, so that way we're not doing anything crazy. We're just basically finding the correct components, correct, and swapping them over.
Yeah, all the hard parts are just unbolt the old part, bolt the new one in. There are some things that we've come across that we forgot about as we get further in the project. We've started to place parts together. We're like, oh, hey, we need a clutch slave cylinder. Oh, we need a master cylinder. Individual lines, things like that. Paul's done a lot of research on some of the wiring stuff for the clutch switch. Luckily, he likes to get into the in-depth wiring thing. But sourcing the parts is pretty simple. Looking up in parts diagrams, having owned one of these cars and having the transmission out, replacing a clutch before, gave us a little head start on what we knew we were going to need.
Right. So the gist of everything is needing the transmission, angle gear, clutch assembly, grenade assembly for the shifter box, and the big one is clutch. So before I let Paul speak to that, I just want to make sure and thank Spec. We've partnered with Spec Clutch for a long time. As a team, we decided what clutch we wanted to go with. The R models did come equipped with a dual mass flywheel and a single mass flywheel. Because we're starting from scratch with an all new flywheel, clutch plate, pressure plate, a disc and pressure plate from Spec, that it's really simple the direction that we chose to go with the horsepower application out of this car, which we'll get into that more later, but we just want to make sure and thank our partners at Spec. They've always supported all of our project cars in the past with high performance applications. We think it's a fantastic way to go, and it's an affordable way to go. I know this stuff looks really expensive, but comparing it to brand new parts from OE, it's actually a pretty dang good deal, and you're getting a high quality product. So we'll go from there. I want to make sure little of our followers know who are paying attention to this build that after the series is done on YouTube, we will have a comprehensive blog similar to like the V8 project that we did here with the XC70, where we'll go through in sections and detail everything out that we came across, maybe some of the finite things that you might run into while doing this. I think one of the biggest sections that we will focus on is the tuning aspect around it. A lot of people are going to be like, what are you going to do for a tune? We've already got that sorted out. We have our resources to be able to make this thing like OE and be able to program the vehicle properly, working with one of our tuners. So we're really excited about that. That will be in future episodes, and we will cover those specifics in a future blog. So before I get to Paul here, Paul, why don't you talk a little bit about, you've owned these cars, you autocross, you race, you do all these wonderful things in Volvos. You've got a P1 with an M66 in it. We'll get into more specifics about the transmission and why you open these things up and what you've brought into IPD to sell to customers to help rebuild these things and make them a little bit better and new. But why don't we just talk about the specifics of why we're doing this job and why you jumped on board?
Some of it is also, as Chris mentioned, the wow factor. Manual R cars are very desirable, not just because the shifter feels pretty good, but they've got the funky Spaceball shifter surround. Everybody loves the Spaceball. There's some good technical reasons as well why you, especially on these 2004 and 2005 cars, why you'd want the M66 over the AW55 5-speed auto. With the best will in the world, it's a 20-year-old automatic. It's not a dual clutch transmission. The shifts aren't lightning fast, and the transmissions can't handle all the torque in the world. If you've ever looked at our tunes for these cars, you'll know that there's a torque limiter on first and second gear. The transmission simply can't take more than about 250 pound-feet of torque through them. So in those gears, it's limited, and as a result, especially the 04s and 05s with the 5-speed, they're over a second to 60 slower than the manuals. So on our car, especially our big turbo development car, this has our 4T4 on it, and it's producing quite a bit more than 250 pound-feet of torque, and consequently we've been through a number of 5-speed autos. And aside from having a pretty cool car once the manual is done, it means we don't have to pull automatics out every couple of years when we blow them up.
Right.
The M66 is known for being a very stout transmission. It's got a cool like multi-shaft design here, where you've got the input shaft, and each gear shaft inside only has 2 gears on it. That makes it very short, it makes it very rigid, and it means it can handle tons of torque. People throw 500-600 pound-feet through these all day without trouble. If you do run into trouble, which does sometimes happen with these, not for typically breaking things reasons, but for lubrication reasons, the fluid level on these sits right about here, and we find that if you allow the fluid level to drop by not keeping a close eye on all of your seals there, running these things low will damage bearings. We have developed our own bearing kit. In a later episode, we'll be splitting this open. I'll be redoing all the seals, and I'll check all the bearings and all the gear sets, make sure they're okay, and replace any that don't look okay.
Right. Yeah, before we put this in the car, that's one thing that I wanted to talk about, is that Bud, Paul, and myself have been out here looking at pretty much everything that we sourced from the donor car that we got the transmission and the angle gear from. But Paul is going to definitely hyper focus on the transmission. He did all the research not too long ago and brought in a full-blown bearing reseal kit and everything like that for this transmission, which he's going to go through. That will be in future episodes, so that's going to be good stuff. And Paul, why don't you talk a little bit about why we had to source a different angle gear for this car as well?
We were talking earlier about our experience with both pulling automatics and pulling manuals out of these, so we have a pretty good idea of the parts that are the same and the parts that are different. Between that and Volvo's catalog software, Vita, we've got a really good list of all of the hard parts that are different. we've got our manual transmission here, of course, the star of the show, but the angle gear is different. The angle gear collar is different. The pedal box is different. Like, there's a good amount of stuff we need to go through, not just hard parts, but wiring as well. We need to make sure we get wiring for the reverse switch, for the brake pedal switch, and for the clutch position sensor, all pinned into the ECU socket. None of that is terribly difficult, but it's involved a lot of staring into Vita and staring at wiring diagrams, and we think we're ready to go.
Yep. So now that we have all three met multiple times and we've got all the pieces, future episodes you will see us start to dive into the car and pulling things apart, starting with removing the transmission, the subframe, angle gear, everything, axles, getting everything out from the car and getting the engine supported properly so we can go ahead and do the swap. You will also see in future episodes this transmission being split apart and Paul going into the individual gear sets and what things are getting replaced, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But for the main point here is that the M66 is underway. The car is on the lift. It's designated for us to work on it for the next couple weeks, and we're excited for everybody to join us. So yeah, we appreciate everybody joining us on this journey, and maybe it will inspire you to do something like this if it's something that you've been thinking about. And you're able to do a little bit of research and find the products. I think that this is something that's completely doable for anybody out there looking to do a manual swap on their car. All right, like I mentioned before, IPD has always partnered with Spec. They're a fantastic company. They're always willing to work with us here. They love Volvo cars. They have a high quality product. They got different stages and clutches. But Paul, why don't you go ahead and just tell our customers a little bit about why this kit is so cool and why we went with this, why we worked with them to go with this setup for this particular car.
There's good quality reasons to go with this, as well as what Chris was alluding to earlier, good cost reasons to go with this. By far, if you're doing this with OEM Volvo parts, far and away the most expensive piece is going to be the factory OEM dual mass flywheel. This single mass piece is significantly lighter, and Spec producing, you can see, like, very high quality parts. All of these components are balanced together very well, so there should be, even though it's a lightweight single mass, minimal chatter at idle. That's always something you need to watch for with clutch kits, especially when you go for like a sporty performance single mass setup. Beyond just the flywheel, we've got here Spec's stage 2.5 clutch. We've got a nice beefy pressure plate here. You'll notice compared to the OEM one, we're lacking the self-adjusting clutch mechanism here. The fingers have greater clamping force here. And the disc, what makes this a 2.5 setup is we've got a multi-puck on one side and full-face Kevlar on the other, which should give us a really nice combination of both torque handling capacity and streetability. This car shouldn't be too difficult to drive when we're done with it, which, given M66s are already on the trickier side of manual transmissions, we wanted something we could still drive every day. Right. And the partial full face and the sprung hub on this means it should still feel pretty good. Right. We do get a lot of calls about that, about our project cars of the past, about how hard they were to drive. And we've had some where multi-plate discs and stuff like that, which doesn't make for everyday driving. Even though this car doesn't get driven very often, we still want it to be like OEM and feel nice when you drive it, and where anybody could jump into it and be able to move it in and out of the garage, I guess. But you know, this being a complete kit and the value and the cost of it, like Paul said, I think that it's a pretty amazing kit. We worked with them, and I think that they knocked this out of the park. We're very happy with this one, and it really will match the character of our car very nicely. This car has our 4T4 kit on it. It's a big turbo kit, but it's still very streetable. You can daily drive this car, and we think this clutch kit is a very good match for that. Right. So you can actually check them out direct. You can get these clutches direct. They have vehicle applications and all the different variations for your Volvo on their website. So you can check that out. We'll be talking a lot about this as we put in the car in future episodes. We'll be going over more about the clutch kit because, like Paul said, the transmission and the kit is pretty much the star of the show. So this isn't the last time you're going to see this here. You will see Spec Clutch and the us installing it in future episodes. This will look pretty cool bolted to the back of our motor. Okay, so we do have the main cast member here, and that is the M66 transmission. And, you know, basically, before we put this in our project car, we want to make sure that the guts and everything internally are in good working order. So
give you a little bit of a sneak peek. We covered this in future episodes, which will be coming out soon, tearing this apart and some of the things that we did to basically reinforce it and make sure that everything is in good working order. We've got this other M66 over here with Paul that's already broken apart, and he can just give you a quick overview or a sneak peek as to what's going to be coming up in future episodes in relation to what we fixed in this M66.
We are going to be looking at all of the bearings in this, and while we're in there, replacing all of the seals. You can see, this is probably not a view of an M66 you're used to. We've got the input shaft here, the bell housing is on the other side. Power comes in here, goes to these gear sets, and then it goes out through the differential here. And each of these 4 gear sets, input, which also has a couple of gears on it, 5th and 6th, first and second, and reverse, they've all got little bearings on them. So we'll be checking these bearings out, making sure they're not like blued, indicating they've been running hot, making sure they're not making any noise, and if we see any bearings we don't like, we'll replace them. We'll replace all the little seals here. You can see here we've got some radial seals there. There's 2 for the diff and there's 1 for the input shaft, and then once we're happy with it, we'll seal it all up and we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. We do sell those parts on IPD's website for anybody that's looking. Paul did a bunch of research, and it's actually been pretty successful. We've had a lot of shops doing this, which told us that there are people out there that when they break a transmission or something happens, and Paul, just touch really quick, usually what would break would be like a first and second gear selector shaft or something along those lines.
These shift forks here, when you move the shift lever inside the car, this column inside the transmission grabs the shift fork and moves it up and down, and that grabs collars on these gear sets and engages and disengages the different gears. We found that this is a reverse gear shift fork right here. First and second gear live right here on this gear set, and that's the shift fork that people tend to break. It's got a very thin neck right here, and first and second gear, especially if you're trying to go for a cool looking launch, people usually break that gear shift fork right after they say, hey, watch this.
Yeah, right.
We'd eventually like to do something about that, and we've got something in the works for that, but for now, we're looking at all the bearings and seals in here and making sure those are okay. This right here is a P1 M66 transmission, but all of the seals and all of the bearings are the same across all M66s. So S60R V70R or S60 V70 T5, P1 like S40 V50 C30. We have front wheel drive and all wheel drive seal and bearing kits on our website that fit all of them, and we'll be using one for that all wheel drive transmission.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on one more thing here before we wrap up this episode, is that I've been getting a lot of comments with people asking me what I've been doing with the passenger side axle. So I've got a sneak peek coming out for that. All I can say is that Paul and our team has already figured out a solution for that, and we'll be announcing that in later episodes and on our website. So we've got a lot of really cool new parts that we're actually developing while doing this and looking at other weak points within these things. But the good news is that there are people out there across the country at independents, in-home garages, shade tree mechanics, do-it-yourselfers, that are buying up the bearing kits and rebuilding these transmissions because people see the value in keeping these cars on the highway, and we love that. We love supporting the Volvo community. We love supporting people with new products and keeping these cars on the road, but we love seeing what people are doing themselves by keeping these cars on the highway. And honestly, we've learned a lot just from looking at YouTube, looking at what other people have done, and we're just taking our experience and kind of melding that all together and moving forward with making this project come to fruition. So we appreciate everybody tuning in for this episode. The future episodes coming up next, you will see Paul breaking this transmission completely apart and looking at everything. And then also you'll see Paul and I dive into the car and removing everything that needs to come off the car so we can get the new transmission put in, right?
Oh yeah.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. I really appreciate my product team with Paul and Bud doing a lot of research and getting the components here, whether that be used or new from OE. Again, we will put a lot of this information out on the final blog once we are done, but stay tuned for future episodes of the M66 swap. throughout our social media channels and on our YouTube channel. Paul and I are here to answer any questions. You know, you can drop us a line. We may not get back to you right away, but we will get back to you because we are figuring stuff out as we go in real time right now. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to hearing from you now and through future episodes. Thanks a lot.